Hello and welcome back to another episode of Only a Bag, an Italian travel podcast. I'm Nathaniel Mellor.
And I'm Darcy Melton. Thanks everybody for listening.
Thank you all so much for being here. Before we get started, just 2 or 3 very quick bookkeeping notes. First, we will not be here next week. Well, we'll be here. The podcast episode will not. We're taking a very short 1-week break because Darcy will be in the States. And we've recorded enough to get us through, I guess, just before you get back, but we won't have enough time to record enough for you to basically cover 1 week for every week you're gone. Does that make sense?
But don't worry, there are lots of episodes for you to listen to.
Yeah, there's tons. There's hundreds, I believe. Actually, really have no idea. There might not be hundreds. There might just be like 40, 50.
There are certainly a lot, though,
there
to
are
get you
episodes.
through the week of Independence Day for America, which I think is the week that we will be missing.
July 4th weekend. I don't know what day
I don't know what day it is. I have no idea.
I actually should, I got to message my grandparents. I think it's their anniversary on July 4th.
It is. Happy anniversary, Mary Jo and Peter.
The cheapest day to get married, apparently, because I don't, somehow like everyone was booked. It was a Tuesday or something. I don't know.
It's really cute.
Yeah, sorry. That's off topic. That was 1. And then 2, I am still under the weather, so Darcy will be doing most of the talking in this episode.
I'll be taking the lead on this episode.
We go back and forth, so thankfully this is Darcy's turn, because last episode was mine, where I think I sounded like a very tired, monotoned person. And 3, if you like the episode, if you like the podcast, please, we'd love it if you could leave a rating, if you follow us, anything like that. Anything that warms your heart will warm our heart.
Tell your friends.
Tell your friends. Even listening warms our heart. So thank you also, seriously, people, for listening. We genuinely appreciate it. So without further ado, Darcy, what are we talking about today?
We are talking about Sorrento, Amalfi, the Amalfi Coast, and Salerno.
Beautiful. Not the same thing as Sorrento.
No, Salerno and Sorrento are 2 different places. The Sorrento Coast and the Amalfi Coast are 2 different coasts.
Also, Salerno and Salento are not the same, and they are not near each other either.
Yeah, a lot of confusingly, similarly named places.
No kidding. So how do you want to get started?
Let's start by talking about how to get from Rome and Naples to Sorrento, because I imagine a lot of you will be doing that this summer.
Perfect.
Okay, so there are 3 ways, essentially, to go from Rome to Sorrento. The first one, which is new to me, is that you can take a bus from the Fiumicino Airport in Rome, which is the main airport in Rome. So you can take a bus to Naples, and then the Circumvesuviana train from Naples to Sorrento, which we talked about in the Pompeii episode, the Circumvesuviana train. And I think we warned you all then that it can be tightly packed in the summertime.
Yeah, absolutely.
It makes a lot of stops, so it's kind of slow. And you're not guaranteed a seat.
It's like a glorified subway car.
It is, yes. Not a new subway car.
No,
an
very
older
much,
one.
Yeah.
But it's cool in that you stop in all these little towns, along the way. You're not going to see the town, most likely. You'll see the train station.
There's also no air conditioning, just as a heads up.
Yes, really good point. Thank you. So option 1, bus from FCO, the airport in Rome, to Naples, and then taking the Naples Circumvesuviana to Sorrento. Option 2, this is what you and I would probably do. You go into Rome and then take the train from Termini to Sorrento. That would make a stop in Naples, and you would have to change there. But I think that is the simplest way, and it avoids buses and a lot of jostling, which might happen on the Circumvesuviana. I get bus sick, so I never choose the bus.
It's also, I think, just as a heads up with the Naples one, you get into one part of the train station, and then you have to walk a bit. And I think it's up an escalator or down an escalator. I think it's up an escalator.
That's true with both. Part. Yeah. So when you change in Naples, if you are taking the bus from the FCO airport, you'll have to go into the Naples train station and go down. Okay. That's where the Circumvesuviana is. For the option of going from Termini, you will have to switch trains, and you're right, it's in like a different part of the station.
Yeah, they have, and they also have, just for you, because you mentioned the Circumvesuviana, they also have the Campania Express for somebody who wants to spend a little more. and have a little bit more comfort.
Cool.
That is the one that is only, I think, half an hour instead of an hour and a half. And the Cercam Vesuviana isn't like actually an hour and a half. It's supposed to be less than that, but it's one of those, I don't know. It always feels like you're there for a long time.
And sometimes you get stopped at a station and someone's like late for the train. They're running to the platform. And
exactly.
I'm saying that because I did that once.
Yes. But it has air conditioning. You can reserve a seat. You get guaranteed luggage space.
And what's the name of that one?
Campania Express.
Okay.
And it only stops, I believe, at Pompeii, Herculaneum, and Sorrento. So it's a little bit quicker. I think it's like, instead of, I don't know, it's €3, I think, for a ticket on the Cercam Vesuviana. It's like 15 or 16 for the Campania Express.
Cool.
So it's one of those things that's like, if it's one or two people traveling, but if it's a family of like 5 and you're like, oh my God, it's €100 all of a sudden to get out to then it's at a certain point, just take a taxi. It's like if you're spending €100 either way, you might as well be in a car to get through there quicker.
Yeah, that's another option. You can just take a taxi. It would be close to €100 for a taxi. And sometimes they add on prices for extra people, I think.
It's a little
but
bit
that
funky.
could be an option if you're a large group.
Yeah.
So we have taking the bus directly from the Rome airport and picking up the Cercam Vesuviana or the Campania Express. Second option is taking a train from Termini through Naples, changing in Naples, going to Sorrento. Your third option, this one is like the wild card option. You can take a bus from Tiburtina, which is different than Termini, the bus station in Rome.
It's also the other train station.
Yeah. And you can take something called the Mazzozzi bus, which is Mazzozi. And it's the wild card because they have weird times.
Oh, interesting.
It basically runs once a day.
Oh.
And yeah.
Yeah, that's...
But okay, so Monday through Friday, it leaves at 3 from Tiburtina.
Okay.
Saturday, Sunday, it leaves at 11. But it goes directly into Sorrento.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. So cool in that it's directly from the center of Rome to Sorrento, but weird times in that it leaves at 3 p.m. during the weekday and 7 a.m. Saturday, Sunday.
Interesting. I did not know this because you also mentioned that's just from Rome.
Yes.
Right. Okay. So if you're Naples, there are other ways to get to Sorrento. Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
Which are
coming up next.
Oh,
so those are your options. I just want to make sure that's clear. Those are your options for Rome to Sorrento. Going from Naples to Sorrento. So you can take from Naples Capodichino, which is the main airport in Naples, the Curreri bus. That is Curreri, spelled Curreri bus, which is, again, I've said that I get bus sick, so I wouldn't necessarily choose it, but it is like a really easy option. You get it straight from the airport. It only takes an hour. You can buy your tickets on board. They're about $10 each, €10 each. Super simple.
And for that one, for what it's worth, you actually don't get it at the bus stop in the Naples airport because there's a bus stop and there's a tourist bus stop, and you have to go to the tourist bus stop to get it.
I did not know that.
On their website, they actually, because I looked it up for a friend, and they were like, we are not at the bus stop. We were at the tourist bus stop or tourism bus or Autolinea Turistici or something like that. So you have to go to the tourism bus stop.
That's a really good note.
But you can get a ticket on board. You can also get a ticket ahead of time. However, I don't believe a ticket guarantees you. It's one of those weird ones. Like a lot of times tickets don't guarantee you a seat ahead of time. It's just if it's a seat, you can ride. You already have your ticket. But I don't think, I think on their website, they make it clear like you can get one ahead of time, but there's no reserving a seat on board.
Oh, I see.
So it's like you can get one ahead of time, but if you get there and we have 2 seats left and there's 8 of you, sorry.
So you have to wait for the next bus.
You have to wait for the next bus.
Okay.
So it's just one of those things that getting it on board is easier sometimes just because it's, why not?
Yeah. And you can look at how many people are on the bus.
Exactly.
And know if you and your party can fit.
Exactly.
So the next option is going to Napoli Centrale, which is the train station in Naples, and taking the Cercam Vesuviana.
And there's a airport bus called the Alibus, I believe, Alibus.
Cool.
And those
Thank
you do get from the airport bus stop. It's not like near the front of the bus, near the front of the airport though. It's like you have to go out of the airport and then walk down a sidewalk for, 50 yards or something like that. And then you get to the bus stop, and you cannot buy those tickets on board. I think no, that's not true. You can get those tickets on board, but they're more expensive than if you get them beforehand.
And that's the airport.
That's the
bus.
airport shuttle bus. Yeah,
to
I
the
think
train station.
it's something like €1 more to get them on board. It's like which is weird. I'm like,
And where do you get them beforehand?
you can, in the Naples airport, you can get them at there's a couple of tabacchi, like the tobacco shops.
Okay.
And you can get them there.
Cool.
And I think obviously you can get them in town at a variety of places like tobacco shops, but
if you're coming
in the airport,
in from the airport,
yeah.
Okay, so those are your options for getting from Naples to Sorrento.
Beautiful.
Naples to Sorrento, because they're so much closer, it's simpler. But you and I always fly into Rome, so I want to put that in there.
And that's the thing. It's for what it's worth. Is anybody listening who's only 10 minutes in and wondering like why would I ever get to Naples? From JFK to Naples, Delta, I believe, is maybe the only one who does it, but there's a direct flight from JFK to Naples. I think it's twice a day, maybe once a day.
And they only go in the summer?
I think they only go in the summer, and that's it's like May to October, I think is what they do. But it's easier for a lot of people because if your trip is only Amalfi Coast or Sorrento, or just, if you're like, I'm going to the beach, I'm going to Capri, I'm going to the south, then you can kind of save half a day by not going through Rome, basically, depending on the times of the travel.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
let's get into talking about Sorrento.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so Sorrento is what would you call it? A small city or a large town?
I'd call it a large town.
Would you? I would call it a small city.
Really?
Okay, yeah.
Well, you like to call things cities.
I do. Well, it's very metropolitan.
Well, I think it's because it's the resort town of Naples.
Yes.
It just has that sort of, it has a very metropolitan feel, but it's like been the resort town
tiny,
of Naples
though.
for, I don't know, thousands of years.
Mm-hmm.
So it is tiny.
It's quite posh in a way.
Sure.
Like you said, it's a resort town. It's a lot of wealthy Napolitano people. Summer there.
Mm-hmm. Houses and villas there.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we said in a previous episode, though, that there's not a lot of beach.
Yes.
I think a lot of people go there expecting it to be like very beachy. There's not a lot of options for beach. And again, we mentioned this before in our beach rules episode, or maybe before that, that you cannot wear like beach attire in town, meaning you can't just wear a bathing suit walking around town, or a bikini top and shorts walking around town, or board shorts and no top. That's not allowed in Sorrento. They want to keep it classy.
Yeah, they're big on I think the mayor even said, this is like last year, year before, he said, we're not Florida.
Yeah.
Please keep your clothes on when you walk around.
We're not Florida. Please keep your clothes on.
Yeah, so that's just I don't know, like a recommendation, but I think I could be wrong because there's only 2 public marinas, and that's also kind of doubles the beaches, kind of. I think maybe some of those villas have private beaches. I'm not entirely sure. Like some of the villas in the sense of ones you can rent, what are they, hotels? Is that what we're calling them? Hotels?
Yeah.
There we go.
Or B&B
B&B,
sort of things.
like the B&B villas. I think some of them have private beaches, like little tiny coves.
Meaning like private access because they're built so close to it. But as we talked about before, you have a right to the shoreline in Italy. So a lot of anybody can take their boat and come up on that beach, even if it can only be accessed by land from one house. Anybody can come onto that beach.
Yeah.
And that, I think a lot of people like Sorrento because if you do have access to a boat, there are lots of little beaches and coves that you can access that are like semi-private because not that many people, a lot of people have boats, but not everybody has a boat.
But plus you can go to Capri, you can go so many places when you have a boat from Sorrento.
Absolutely.
Well, Capri.
Yeah.
Sorry,
it's a very lovely, posh place to be if you have a boat, and you can just, take your little boat around to other little coves and out into the water, and
Though I don't know, people often ask like renting boats. I don't know. I'm assuming you can, but I assume it's more of like you can. I don't know, because I know a lot of places do like a boat rental. Like you can rent a sailboat for the day. I don't know if anywhere on Sorrento would do that necessarily.
I have no idea, but also with the rise of like Airbnb experiences, and
there's plenty of people who take you out for sure.
Yeah, and there's some other site that I saw recently. I was getting recommended somewhere on some social media that had you can rent or you can pay for these experiences. So all that means is that there might be people who are renting out their own boat to you, and I don't know the legality of any of that. If you have to prove you have a boat license or anything like that. But
exactly,
with the rise of those things, there might be options from like local people renting out boats and experiences. You can definitely get tours.
Yes.
On other people's boats.
And you can definitely, I mean, like, there's a lot of those boats that are just like, we'll put some champagne and some strawberries on board and you just come out for the day and, we'll just take you around.
I'm sorry, what was the wine you mentioned?
Oh, sorry, Prosecco and strawberries.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm so sorry. Forgot who I was with.
No, you are Italian. I cannot believe you would recommend champagne in this country.
I've been sick for days. I'm so sorry. My brain's
I'll let you off
addled.
on this one. And speaking of Prosecco, let's talk about some Sorrento food.
Sure. I like Sorrento food. I mean, in theory.
Yeah.
In practice, not a huge fan.
Okay, so there are some typical dishes of Sorrento, but I will warn you that Sorrento is a touristy town, and while a lot of the tourists are probably Italian, there are also many, many American and Western and people from other parts of Europe visiting there. So some of the restaurants will be quite touristy. So just watch out for that. But okay, so let's get into some of the piatti tipici, typical plates of Sorrento. So spaghetti alla vongole is spaghetti with clams. And then the gnocchi alla sorrentina has gnocchi, the little like
potato gnocchi?
Potato, yeah. With scallops.
Oh.
And then there is, this one is what I really want to try. It's a hard word to say. It's like cannoli, but it's not cannoli. Cannelloni.
Oh, okay.
Which they look like cannoli, but it's pasta. So it's this long tube-shaped pasta. Yeah. And it's like a pasta al forno, which means it's baked in the oven. So often it will have ricotta and I think it's an odd herb for it, like oregano maybe? I remember it's something odd and green. Maybe it's ricotta and spinach.
Okay.
But stuff
not parsley.
Not
they
parsley.
put parsley in everything.
They put parsley in everything, and I don't like parsley. Okay, so ricotta stuffed with a red sauce on top and baked in the oven. The other typical one is with beef and tomato sauce. Yeah, so it sounds really good. So those are typical dishes of Sorrento.
I'm surprised. I'd expect a lot more seafood, and I'm assuming there is, but...
Yeah, well, you and I went, and I think we ate at a restaurant that was maybe half and half tourists, half and half Italians.
The one with your mom?
Yeah.
Okay, sure.
And the food was fine.
Yeah.
I recall noticing some fish on there that wouldn't be local. And I don't remember exactly what it was, but I remember thinking, like, there's no way that comes from here. We talked about in the last episode some of the fish and seafood that do come from this area. So those would be mollusks, meaning like mussels, clams. I think there's several kinds of whitefish.
Octopus.
Octopus is huge, yeah.
And I think, actually, I can't remember what they're called. Naples has their own, or not Naples, but the region has their own mollusk. It's like a little tube-shaped, candle-shaped thing. And they'll harvest those and, cook them. I don't really know. I don't even know what they're called. But it's basically a tube-shaped mollusk type thing. There's some with the shells and some without the shells. And I really don't know the difference. My knowledge of mollusks is lacking. But all that is to say is if you don't recognize... if you have a shellfish allergy, basically, and you don't recognize like a word, or if it has a shellfish allergy, sometimes, usually, almost always, they'll have a little symbol next to it that lets you know that there's, shellfish in this.
At least in bigger towns.
In bigger towns, in bigger restaurants.
And places that are more used to tourists.
Yeah, like Sorrento, I'm thinking by and large should.
Yeah.
But I'm only saying that because I didn't want somebody to get a plate that's like, oh, this is like a fun new fish. And it's like, no, that's just some lovely bottom feeder they found to feed you. I love that in the sense that Naples is all about the bottom feeder.
Yeah.
In a happy way.
And in Sorrento too, they might have fresh alici, which are fresh. I can never remember what they're called. Anchovies. That some of the best anchovy. We'll talk about this in a moment. But some of the best anchovies in the world, according to people who eat fish, not me. I don't eat fish. Come from part of the Amalfi Coast. So up in Sorrento, they will likely have some very good ones as well.
That is good to know.
Yeah,
that's beautiful. And then of course I've heard they have lemons.
Yeah, I think they have like maybe some lemons there. Just kidding. They definitely have lemons there, and they're amazing. So Sorrento is known for their lemons. The Amalfi Coast is also known for their lemons. They are distinct.
Apparently.
Well, no, we've had them, and you
Yes,
can
that's
tell
true.
when you have like 1-to-1, when you try them together, they are distinct, which
Yes.
is crazy. I imagine it has to do with the soil, potentially.
I always think that or a different strain. It could be a different type
Yeah,
of.
could be a different kind of type of lemon.
Yeah.
Okay, so Sorrento is known for their lemons, and they are, because of that, known for their limoncello, which is, you might say lemoncello, but it's limoncello. Okay, so let's talk about identifying good limoncello. It's one of the ones, actually, we had this conversation recently with some people who were visiting, and I think we were all at the time going, I mean, limoncello is limoncello. It's a sweet, lemony alcohol. How could you go wrong? Apparently you can go wrong. And let me tell you how.
Please do.
Okay, so when you're looking, because everybody, if you drink alcohol and you like sweet things, you're probably going to want to buy some limoncello and have some when
Especially
you're
if you like
there.
lemons.
Yes. So it is an after dinner drink. You might find, okay, so just quickly. So in Italy, there's the aperitivo hour, which is when you have a little bite and an alcoholic beverage if you drink alcohol. And that gets your digestion started for having a meal after. You can have that before lunch and before dinner. It should be a lighter, less alcoholic beverage. And so that's all to say that limoncello is an after dinner drink. It is more alcoholic. There might be like modern cocktails that use it for an aperitivo, but that's not.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
That's not traditional. I mean, do what you want to do if you're on vacation in Italy, but just
like
to
a
put that out there.
limoncello martini is not common here.
Exactly. There might be like the limoncello lemon drop.
Yeah.
Limoncello drop, but
Or
that's
limoncello
not
spritzer or something
right.
like that.
But that's not typical.
Aperol spritzer.
Yeah. Okay, so limoncello should be had after your meal to help you digest. If you want to identify good limoncello, let's go through the list. So when you're looking at it, it should have a little tag that says DOC or IGP. Those are for basically any product. They show you if it's from a controlled origin or from the original place where this thing was created.
Like Prosecco is from Prosecco region with Prosecco grapes, not
Exactly.
like from Kentucky with.
And do you remember what DOC stands for?
It's the denomination of a controlled origin or something like that.
Okay. And then IGP is
beats me. It's something Gruppo Protetto, but
Geografica Protetto.
Indication of the geographical protection or something
Yes.
like that. Indica. Okay, yeah.
So there's little blue tags that'll be like on the neck of the bottle, indicating that it's from a good region. And you want to look on the bottle to see if it says if the lemons are from Amalfi, Sorrento, or Campania in general. Obviously, if you want the Sorrento limoncello, it should say Sorrento. But lemons in all of the Campania region are really lovely lemons and will make really good limoncello.
No, absolutely. I mean, we've had a lot of lemons that are, I mean, not like basic lemons, but like just sort of from the coast, and they're gorgeous. I mean, they're really beautiful.
They're awesome, and they are all distinct, and they are certainly all distinct from like regular lemons you'd find in your home country or Meyer lemons or anything like that. They are very specific. So the color, it should be transparent and yellow, but not like electric yellow in your face. And once you start seeing them, you should be able to notice the difference, I think, because some of them are like, they look artificially yellow. Okay, so when you're smelling it, so now you've opened up the limoncello, you've chosen your bottle, you're like, that one looks good. I listened to Darcy, I followed the rules. You open it up, or someone opens it for you because there are like limoncello tasting rooms. And it should smell like lemons first, not alcohol. You shouldn't get a big old whiff of alcohol. And it should be 25 to 30% alcohol, and that will be listed on the bottle. And if it's more than that, it might be an indication that they've increased the alcohol to cover up artificial flavors or bad flavors and smells.
Interesting. Okay.
So now you're going on to tasting it. So it should be, obviously, lemon forward.
I like that. Lemon on the palate.
Yeah, it should be lemony, slightly like tangy, like a lemon would be, slightly sour, a little bit bitter. It is an after dinner drink. It should be sweet, but not, it shouldn't, like make your face squinch up with sugar. It shouldn't be a sugary thing. It should be, oh, that's sweet and lemony. And it should be refreshing.
Interesting. Okay, well, it makes sense.
Yeah, so that's how to find good limoncello.
Well, I think that's good information.
Thank you.
Is that the only kind of limoncello people will find?
Great question, Daniel. No. They will find crema di limoncello, which is it is cream of limoncello, which basically during the process of making limoncello, and that process is soaking lemon rinds that have not been treated with pesticides, that have not been waxed. They should be loved. So you take the rind off the lemon and soak it in alcohol. I think for about a week or more.
Yeah, it's like 7 days. Yeah.
And then that is mixed with simple syrup, and that becomes just regular limoncello. But for crema di limoncello, you mix in boiled milk, and it makes this lovely, rich, creamy, and I think extra sugar for that one.
I can see that. It makes sense because it's a little sweeter.
It is, but it's lovely.
Weirdly, I mean, it's almost like the little guilty pleasure because it's like you should like the limoncello, but then you have the crema di limoncello and you're like, oh man,
it's like lemon pie.
Yeah, exactly. It's like a little dessert in and of itself.
Yeah,
basically.
Exactly.
No, that's actually good information because I know a lot of people like. Essentially, I think one easy thing too, because we talked about this in the gelato episode. Like pistachio gelato is like the good canary in the coal mine. If it's green, it's all going to be fake. But it's the bottling. Like if it's a bottle that says, Sorrento, it's like if it looks like
it looks ticky tacky.
Yeah, exactly. If it looks like a tchotchke, if it looks like a I would say it's kind of the same thing. Like in your home state or in your home country or in your home region, if there's something that you're like that's definitely for tourists. I mean, because it's like again we keep saying this about Savannah, but I'm like there's so much packaging that's clearly for tourists that we would never buy because it's like you're paying for the packaging. And I think it's the same thing with limoncello. And I think a good one, I mean, if you're in Sorrento and you just can't find one that you trust, a really good fallback is to go to the grocery store.
That's exactly what I was going to say.
Yeah? Okay. Because that's something that a lot of, even those Sorrentinians that we know, will get theirs at the grocery store because it's like, it's either you make it yourself with the lemons you're growing or you go to the grocery store and get the nicer bottle that they have.
Absolutely. And that's a good way to know that you're getting something that's decent because locals are drinking it, and I think it gives you time to stand in the grocery store and look through the bottles,
exactly.
And not feel the pressure of being in a small shop and feeling
like you have to buy something.
Exactly.
You probably can't taste it at a grocery store as a heads up. I don't think they allow you to open it up and sniff it either, but you can just buy it and hope for the best.
You can look for the DOC label or the IGP
DOC.
label. You can look to see where the lemons were grown. They should have an origin, and you can look to see if it's 25 to 30% alcoholic. Those are all good indications.
I'm not mistaken, and I could be. Please correct me. The DOC and DOCG are both will both denote alcohol, but IGP is food. So it's like the lemons could be IGP, but the alcohol will be DOC. And the last thing I wanted to mention is if you're if you just want to find like a pretty decent limoncello without having to do too much work, and you're going to stay in Sorrento, when you book your stay, try to book a stay at an agriturismo.
Which is like a B&B with a farm attached, right?
Yeah, exactly. I like that you asked me the question. Like I like this back and forth. Like, is that what it is? Oh, I think that's what it is. Like we haven't stayed at agriturismi. But yeah, no, this is exactly. And I think because a lot of them, especially in Sorrento, will have their own lemon trees. They'll have their own production. They'll make their own limoncello in-house. It is so easy to say limoncello.
I know. I definitely say it wrong sometimes.
But no, it'll be so easy, I think, to get your hands on really good quality limoncello made, well, not fresh, but in the sense of like.
Probably made this year, though.
Exactly.
I mean, it's not an aged alcohol.
Yeah, exactly. It's not aged, but it's not like
recently.
Made a week ago.
No, because it's not lemon season anymore.
Exactly.
But also at agriturismi, which is the plural of agriturismo, they should have a farm, like we said, and often they will have animals. And if things aren't made at the agriturismo, they will likely be made, if they don't have a cheese production, their cheese comes from a neighbor down the street. Or if their family owns olive orchards in the next town over, maybe their olive oil comes from there. But it is quite local and fresh.
And this, also is great because you support the local economy.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which is huge because a lot of these are family owned, like little, things. Like
Definitely.
they turned a farmhouse into a bed and breakfast, basically. So is that it for Sorrento? Is there more?
I think that's it for Sorrento.
That's it for Sorrento. So we have the Amalfi Coast, basically, in Salerno, which is not Salento.
So the Sorrento coast goes basically it looks like an elbow sticking out, like a tiny little triangle sticking out from the body of Italy. So the Sorrento is on the northern coast of that little shut out peninsula. Thank you. That's the geographical term, northern coast of the peninsula. And then its coastline, which encompasses many towns, goes around and ends at Positano.
Yeah, I think it's a couple kilometers outside of Positano, but more or less, yeah.
And that is where the Amalfi Coast begins.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe we should say now, so I don't forget. So you can take, we're going to give you directions on how to get from Rome and Naples to the Amalfi Coast. But if you're in Sorrento, you can take a public bus around that coastline to Positano.
Yes.
And that is the bus that you will take if you listen to our previous episode on swimming among Roman ruins. That is the bus that you can take to the Bagni della Regina. Bagno della Regina. I say it wrong.
The Queen's Bath. But yeah, no, so it goes out, basically, I think it's called Capo di Sorrento, is the head of the top of Sorrento, the end of Sorrento is the jet out point, and then it turns back around and then eventually becomes Amalfi. So how many towns are there on Amalfi Coast?
13. Thank you for asking. There are 13 towns along the Amalfi Coast. And I think it's easy to think of it as tiny, but also easy to think of it as giant. It's pretty small, the coastline that is specifically Amalfi, but there are 13 towns in there. And 2 of them are not directly on the coast. Ravello is slightly away from the coast, and then Tramonti is pretty far away.
Because Ravello might be a walk away, might be like a kind of
a long walk away.
Yeah, but Tramonti is like
definitely a drive.
Yeah, the whole day.
Yeah.
It's a whole day walk. It's an easy drive. There's also, for what it's worth, there's a lot of other towns on that peninsula. It's just the rest are in the Sorrentinian side of the peninsula. And when people go to the Amalfi Coast, they usually go to one of those 13 towns.
Right. It's kind of like Cinque Terre in that way. Where Cinque Terre is 5.
Yeah.
Five towns. Amalfi is 13. So let's talk about how to get there.
Okay.
So bear with me. So to get from Rome to Salerno, you want to just take the train from Termini. Yeah.
One thing I was going to say, Salerno is the...
we didn't preface that.
Yeah, just because in case people were wondering. It's a sort of like... where the peninsula comes back in, essentially, is where Salerno is. It's sort of the south... it's hard to explain a map to somebody who's not looking at a map, isn't it?
But it's if you're imagining Sorrento, you take your mind around that peninsula. You're going to go past the Amalfi Coast and down slightly south, and that is Salerno.
Yeah, and Salerno is essentially the gateway to the Amalfi Coast. Like, you can absolutely go from Sorrento around to Positano and start there. But by and large, I would say it's easier to start in Salerno because it's easier to get to Salerno than it is to get to Sorrento.
Yes,
Salerno is on the same train line as Naples, which is in the sense of like, I think it only takes like 20 minutes or something like that, 22 minutes from Naples to Salerno. And then it takes just over around, I think the Campania Express is the faster train, about half an hour to Sorrento from Naples, except I think the one that goes to Salerno is a little cheaper, and then it's the same bus out. It's just kind of coming either way. But Salerno is the basically the gateway to the Amalfi Coast. And the other reason I want to preface this is because it might not be what you're expecting.
Yeah. Okay. Let's talk about Salerno first, so people are prepared. Okay. So Salerno is, I think off mic, you explained that it's kind of equal to like the way La Spezia is to Cinque Terre. Salerno is a bit like that to the Amalfi Coast.
Yeah.
It is properly a city. Would you agree with that?
I would agree with that.
Okay. It is definitely a city. Part of it is really beautiful. Honestly, in the wintertime, they do this really cool like light displays all along the streets, and they have like a different theme, different years.
Yeah.
But if you're going now, part of it is very, very cute. Another part is very 1980s and a little bit run down.
Yeah. It's like it's that thing where they put an overpass in for like a highway, but they put it right next to people's windows and right over other stores and and it's like, and people still live there. So it's like they're drying their laundry and then with a broom they could reach and touch the overpass. And you're like, what is the point of that? So it's a little...
I think it looks a little bit like the outskirts of Naples.
Well, I was going to say, it's a good example of Salerno is a scaled down Naples. It has the same black volcanic stone in the old town for like the floor,
Pavement?
the pavement. Yeah, is that what I call it? The floor, the outside floor, the ground. No, but it still uses that same shiny black volcanic rock. It still has that same kind of tight winding alley feel. It's beautiful. The old town is gorgeous. It has these escalators that you can kind of take up because it's the old town's quite terraced. So you can take these escalators up, so it's not that much of a walk. There's great food in it as well. I mean, the same thing in Naples in the sense of like it's a city. It's a functioning, active city. It's got a huge port, like a industrial port. I think we mentioned that in the last episode, as well as a pedestrian port for like boats.
Exactly. It does have 2 or 3 small beaches.
In it properly, yeah. But as you go down, it's nothing but lidos and beaches.
Yes, absolutely. I would say that like the 2 ones, I mean, basically they are right in smack in the middle of town. Lots of locals go to those beaches, but for me, they're pretty close to the port.
Because one is in the marina.
Yeah,
one they're just like swimming next to the boats, and the other one is kind of near like a weird. Is it like I don't know what that is. Is that a visitor center? Is that a visitor center for the ferries? That weird futuristic building that's. Darcy's looking at me weird. It's like we haven't looked at this giant futuristic building in Salerno every time we're there.
Oh, I think it's like an event center.
Is that what it is?
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know what that is. But there's also, I think I've talked in a previous episode about how I have basilophobia. Is that what it is? So there's along one of the cute, it is honestly a cute, tiny little beach where a lot of locals go, right in the middle of town. But there's a breakwater made up of giant concrete cubes, and that freaks me out.
Well, it's also, I think you don't like the fact that there's like you can see the anchors in the water, like,
yes.
and it's just like, there's a lot of that kind of stuff. You're like, oh man, that's just stuff in the water I can go touch. It's kind of wild. I will say but it's a beautiful, the city itself
beautiful
is,
city.
There's a boardwalk. There's a really long, gorgeous boardwalk along the water, gorgeous sunsets. That's the other thing with the Amalfi Coast, by the way. It faces south, and because it's kind of a lot of the towns are in valleys between these 2 mountains, you don't often get the sunset as a fair warning. And even more importantly, you don't, depending which town you're at, the beach will lose light well before it's sunset. Like it might lose light at 6 and the sunset's like 8:30 or 9. And that's just to say, as we were swimming once, and we're like, it was so nice. And as soon as we lost the light, it was like, oh my God, I'm freezing.
Yeah.
I need to get in, like, out of this water immediately.
And also the water turns not black, but very dark.
Yes,
and you can't see.
It goes real scary real quick because you're like, you can see everything and you're like, oh, it's so gorgeous. And all of a sudden it gets that inky black color and you're like, oh, there's just like squids in this water that can eat me.
It was kind of cute though, because I think there were there were like 4 of us, including me and you, still trying to get that like last bit of sun, and we were all swimming towards like the non-shadow. And at a certain point, the shadow engulfed all of us, and I think we all like kind of looked at each other and we're like, we should let's swim in. This is enough.
That was fun. But Salerno, I just wanted to preface that because it's
beautiful sunsets.
Beautiful sunsets, really gorgeous.
And really good food options. So on the Amalfi Coast, it is very easy to eat bad food. We'll talk about it a little bit later. They have some awesome local, like pretty ancient food, and some that's 40 years old, but very typical. But
it's still good.
Yeah. The recipe is 40 years old, to clarify, not the food.
Well.
But Salerno has lots of restaurants, and they have things that aren't just Italian food, if you're looking for something a little bit different. And a lot of people live in that city, so the restaurants have to be decent. Yeah,
I think it's a really good way of putting it. There's a pretty large immigrant population, I guess.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, because I know we had a conversation with expat versus immigrant, which is kind of like, now I'm like, oh, that's a good question. But there's a lot of food. There's like Indian food. There's a lot of different. Well, actually, I mentioned that one because we've been to the Indian food restaurant a number of times. But it's like, it kind of is like the most popular place to be at lunch. But there's a lot of, I don't know. It's just, as 2 people who I guess live in Italy, sometimes as much as I love Italian food, it's like having the same thing all the time when you go out to eat. It's like, oh, what one of 100 things do you want again?
And I know for a lot of people who are going on a trip that is, more than a week or so, or even less than that, sometimes you get this, not a homesickness, but a longing for something that isn't Italian food because you've thrown yourself into a completely different space, and you might be uncomfortable. Sometimes you want something that is just not Italian for one night, even if you've only been here for a week or so.
Yeah, no, and it's nice just to have something totally different. And Salerno has a lot of options, which is really nice. I think it's a huge benefit. And the other thing I wanted to mention is the train station.
Yes. What about it would you like to mention?
Namely that it's a nightmare, I think. I think it's one of those things. I am curious historically because I know the Amalfi Coast, like Capri and the Amalfi Coast was part of the Grand Tour, so it's been under tourism for a couple hundred years. But they really hit a boom post World War II, like Capri and Ischia and Procida, which we talked about in the last episode. But it's kind of like there was other ways to get there, because Salerno seems to not understand the fact that every summer millions of people will come through that train station and then arrive at there's a tiny piazza in front of the train station, and it is as Italians use, casino, which is just, it's just nightmarish. And I went with we were picking up some artists, and I went with the Italian bus driver, and he's looking at me, he's like, this is a proprio casino, no? And I'm like, no, è normale for every day that's not the summer, this is exactly what you'd expect. And that's just it's chaos. It's basically, it's people, it's chaos, it's horns, it's taxis, there's not a lot of space, like outside of Termini, outside of Florence, outside of Milan, outside of even Venice, there's space, like not so much Venice proper, but Venice Mestre. It's like there's space for taxis and buses and this and that and people idling, but there is no space outside of this. I mean, people are wall to wall. There's people double parked, triple parked, honking.
Oh yeah,
it is a nightmare.
However, if you're coming from Naples,
then you're fully prepared.
You're fine. It's less chaotic than Naples.
Well, not less chaotic than the train station, because the train station is pretty, like, there's buses on one side, and then there's go ahead is the next trains, and then there's it's...
Okay, I guess I should say it's not necessarily less chaotic, but it is, compared to Naples, I think, it's better formatted. It's not a good format, because there's 2 or 3, maybe 4 tracks at the Salerno station.
I think 8, technically.
Oh, wow, that's more than I thought. But they all end up, like when you come down the stairwell, you all end up in the same hallway, and you exit through the same.
Which is actually the same as the entrance, too.
Yeah.
Because one enter, one exit.
It can be a lot of people, and you're right, there's not a lot of space to, like, when you exit, get your bearings, or figure out where you're supposed to be going. But there's not a lot of ways to, like, take a wrong turn. So it can be overwhelming, but as long as you follow the crowds, you'll end up outside and you can figure out where you're supposed to go.
And usually there's taxis right outside, and you can avoid them, like, just by saying no thank you, because they will obviously ask, like, do you guys want to ride? You good? Like, you have a lot of bags. And I believe it's a horseshoe shape by and large, is the the piazza in front of the Salerno train station, and you're going to be at the top or the bottom of the horseshoe depending on how you look at horseshoes. The top of the bend,
the toe of the horseshoe.
The toe, yeah, where the little toe goes. And so on the, basically, if you have your back to the door and you're looking forward and to the right is where the bus will be, the Città Sud bus stop, and that's the bus. That's one of the pretty much the major bus that'll take you to the Amalfi Coast. There are other tourist buses, but Città Sud is like a Campania endorsed, like it's like it's one of the bus lines of Campania, basically. It's one of, like, the federally backed bus lines of Campania, which means a lot of things, but primarily it means very cheap tickets. It means I think it's something like €5, €4 a ticket, but that gets you all the way to Sorrento. So you can, if you only going as far as like 1 or 2 stops, it's even cheaper. And
that will take you along the Amalfi Coast, right? And you can stop in those towns.
Yeah, and that's the thing.
We'll talk about that more in a minute.
I was gonna say when we transition back to you telling us about the Amalfi Coast, not me. This is not my episode.
Okay, I just want to go quickly through so you guys know how to get from Rome and Naples to Salerno.
Now
that you know where Salerno is, once you're in Salerno, you can then take buses all along the Amalfi Coast.
And one last thing, and then I promise I will let you talk. No, I wanted to mention is also lodging is typically a good amount cheaper in Salerno because there's a lot of other options. I guess there's a lot of other places to stay. So I guess competition makes it a little cheaper. But it's not in the Amalfi Coast proper. It can kind of be, especially in the summer season, it can be like, wow, we're going to book this last minute and it is pricey. But Salerno typically, I mean, 100 something euros a night is not unheard of. And again, we're talking, this is not like amazing. You're not getting a hotel room, or you're getting, or not a great hotel room, but Salerno is going to be the cheaper option compared to the Amalfi Coast. If you're looking, and this is just on the off chance you're looking to do a family trip and you're just looking for something a little cheaper than, $600 a night. Or if you're doing like a budget travel and you really want to check out the Amalfi Coast, Salerno is probably the place you actually want to stay. And then you just want to take day trips out on the bus.
Yeah, totally. I agree. Okay, so to get from Rome to Salerno, you're just going to take the train from Termini.
Wow,
easy. That's what you're going to do. If you are coming from Naples, you can take the train from Napoli Centrale, the main train station in Naples. Or this one's an interesting option. You can take the 5,000 bus, the 5,000 bus. But here's the thing. Okay, it's convenient in that it goes straight to Salerno, and it stops not at the Salerno train station, but at a bus station, just a short walk from the train station. And from there, you can get buses up to the Amalfi Coast.
Interesting. And do you know, did you see on the map which bus stop it stopped at?
Which ones it stops at or which one it picks up at? In Salerno or Naples?
In Salerno.
It stops at the one that you and I have been to.
So it stops at the it's the Città Sud bus depot, is what it's called. And I only say that because we could not for the life of us find the Città Sud stop. Again, we were going to make a podcast like this 2 years ago, or a year ago, and we could not find it. And we're like, where is it? So we just walked all the way to the bus depot. Not the bus depot, like it wasn't this giant building. It's just a parking lot, and that's
it's a bus parking lot.
And it's the first bus stop. And we're so thankful we got on there because that next stop was the Salerno train station. And it was packed.
A casino.
Yeah, it was like, and then everybody was on board, and it was like people standing. It was just like, oh my god.
Okay, so this 5,000 bus arrives at this bus parking lot, and it's at Via Vinci Prova, which in like American English would be Venci Prova. And you're right, that is much like you're guaranteed almost a seat when you go there. Maybe not in the summer; it might be chaotic, but it's.
We went in the summer though, right?
It was summerish.
Summer. Yeah, okay.
But it was much less chaotic, easy to find a seat. But then once the bus, because the next stop is, like you said, the train station, it's a casino. It is wild there. A lot more tourists. In our experience, they were a lot more rude tourists.
Yeah.
But they were probably tired. I get it. So the weird thing about that bus, though, when you pick it up in Naples, you do not pick it up at the train station. You pick it up next to the Ramada Hotel, which is not very far from the train station. It is on
I feel like one of those Where's Waldo books where you have to like find the bus stop, and it's like, if you take a left just around the kebab stand, you'll hit
So it is via Ferraris Galileo, near the Ramada by Wyndham. So really, it's not that far, but it's just a bus stop.
Is the Ramada in the Piazza Garibaldi or no?
No.
Okay, good to know.
It is not far from it.
Okay.
So if you arrive at the Naples train station, you will not have to walk far to this bus, but it is not where the other buses are, and it is not at the train station.
And just to be clear, where the other buses are is kind of a behind-ish, is a better way, but around the corner from the train station, and it's impossible to miss. So when you're saying it's not where the other buses are, it's like another bus depot, but it's where all the buses come through the Naples train station, essentially. All the regional buses.
Yeah.
So that's just so when people are thinking like, I don't know if this is it. If you see tons of other buses, it's not it.
Yeah.
If you see the
Ramada
Ramada
in a weird spot
by Wyndham,
then
that's it. They should sponsor this video, or what is the video? They should sponsor this podcast. Should give us a free stay. Let's try
Ramada
the bus
by Wyndham.
So that's an interesting one. I didn't know that. That's good to know.
Okay, so both of those are ways to get to Salerno. And then from Salerno, like we said, at Via Vinci Prova, which is the bus depot, you can get the bus, which will go to all the towns along the Amalfi Coast. You can also, if you're arriving at the train station, take the bus from there it's the same bus that goes to all the buses on the Amalfi Coast. So you get on the bus and you tell them which town you want to go to, and you pay the amount for that town. So the farther away you go, the more expensive it is. If you want to be crazy, like me and Nathaniel, you can pay for like the farthest point away. You could pay for like Amalfi, but plan to get off earlier. The bus driver will likely be very concerned that you're getting off. Try to explain to you that that's not your bus stop. So you have to explain, no, we like this town. We understand. We're getting off here. Thank you so much. But that is a way that if you want to pay what you need to, basically, if you see a town before what you've paid for and you're like, wow, this is beautiful, let's get off here, you can do that. The bus driver will be concerned, though. And
that bus you mentioned, taking it to Amalfi, the Sita Sud is SITA space SUD, or Sita Sud is what it'll look like. That will go all the way to Sorrento, but you have to switch in Amalfi. So there's like one leg that goes back and forth between Salerno and Amalfi, and another leg that goes between Amalfi and Sorrento. And there's a Sita Sud go around to other places as well. But yeah, as you mentioned, if you're not staying on the Amalfi Coast, even if you are, it's really just a fantastic way to get around. It's cheap. It's pretty safe. I mean, the buses here, I think we've talked about this before, they typically get priority. Like
when you're driving.
I believe. And again, neither of us have a driver's license in this country, so we don't actually know. But like merging onto highways, they seem to get priority. Coming around a bend, other things will have to back up to let them.
They definitely get priority. Like if you've seen movies about the Amalfi Coast, you will likely recognize the harrowing highway that goes along the coastline between mountain, where they've carved in the road, and then cliff. And buses honk as they come, because the turns are every turn is a blind turn.
It's completely blind, yeah.
So the buses honk as they go around the turn, and cars will have to, if they come too close, they will have to back up along the highway so the bus can pass.
Not to mention, people do actively walk along the road because it's still the easiest way to get from town to town, or from like your house to the grocery store.
And that's how you can access some of the beaches as well.
There is no sidewalk. There is no shoulder of the road. It is only wide enough for 2 cars or a bus and a half. So like a bus and a half a car. So yeah, if you're walking on the side of the road, just don't
walk in the road.
Just don't walk in the road. Try to walk as close to the edge as you can. But by and large, people don't seem to get hit.
No.
That is all to say. Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, I was just going to warn you guys that when the bus stops for you to get off in your town that you've chosen, it might stop at something that doesn't look like a bus stop.
Yes, that's a good one.
Like the one in Chitara, it stops at a coffee shop, like a little cafe.
Yeah.
And on the other side of the road where it picks up, it's not even a piazza, really. It's like a little
bench.
Yeah, there's a couple benches there. Yeah.
Yeah. But not like bus benches, like just park benches to hang out on. But again, in typical Italian fashion, they do not face
a pretty view.
Like
face the road.
We're going to talk about that in some episode, why benches in Italy never face the pretty view. But no, I was going to say too, this is all to say you might not want to rent a car in Amalfi. That mixed with the fact that Amalfi has a rule where you can only, it's like an anti-car, or it's a reduced use of car rule. So it's like on some days you can use a license plate ending with an even number. On some days, a license plate ending with an odd number. You do not want to get tangled up in that if you're renting a car. It's kind of a nightmare to keep straight. Even when we've rented a car, we just park it at Salerno and take the bus, because it's like, why do they not let the professional do it? Plus, if you get hit when you're on a bus, I mean, that thing is like bulletproof, unless it falls off the cliff, in which case,
But has that ever happened?
I genuinely don't think so. We should have looked this up before this episode, but they seem very safe, and these people seem incredibly talented at driving giant buses around sharp curves. So. Yeah.
All right, so do you want to get quickly into some of the towns in Amalfi?
I think we can hit some of the towns in this food.
Okay, so we're not going to talk about each town because there are 13. Let's quickly...
What are the big ones, out of curiosity? What are the main ones?
I would say, well, what I think are the main ones?
Yeah.
Okay, Amalfi, number 1, obviously. It's called the Amalfi Coast. Positano, I think is a big one.
All the yachts go there.
Ravello is small, but people have heard of it.
They have something there. I know I hate when I sound like they have something there that people go to. It's some sort of villa there. that people, because all these photos from Ravello, there's a villa in Ravello with this like.
Was it the one with the busts?
I
It's like
think
a pretty
so. It's
outlook spot point.
There's something like that. Yeah, it's kind of famous. I would say also Vietri sul Mare.
That was going to be my next one.
It's
Yeah,
the first one on the coming from Salerno. The first town you go to. I mean, it's literally 2 minutes on the bus. Not even is Vietri sul Mare, and that would probably be pretty famous. But for their ceramics, I think.
Yeah.
Maybe more than the actual town.
Definitely. I think they're famous for their ceramics. And speaking of which, so there are three towns in on the Amalfi Coast well known for products that are not food. So Vietri sul Mare is known for its ceramics. If you think of Italian tile, like in a what's the famous American interior design type? Better Homes and Gardens.
I was like, not Bed Bath Beyond, so I don't know.
I think if you look in Better Homes and Gardens and they have that like rustic Italian style kitchen.
Yeah.
I'm saying it like
paintings
I'm
of
making
lemons
fun of
on the
it.
tiles.
So if
Blue
you
and
think
white.
of Italian tiles, you're probably thinking of tiles from Vietri sul Mare.
Yeah. That goes also, I think, for cups and for vases and for anything like that.
Yeah,
They do
so
a lot of that kind of.
Well-known, you're saying like the big vessels. They have busts that are made of ceramics, tiles, plates, cups, the little thing that you pour the olive oil out of. I'm sure now they have Christmas ornaments.
I was like, some of it is for anyone who's looking to get like gifts and souvenirs. Some of it is actually artisanal and is actually made there.
Yes.
Like it's still protected. There's this huge building, a huge workshop, but a lot of it is still made there by artisans, not and some of it for sure is not. So you gotta have to ask around and be careful so you're not just getting something made in
And
China.
also look for imperfections. If it's imperfect, it is likely made by hand.
That's
If
a
it
good
is
point.
absolutely perfect, it is made in a factory
Yeah,
by
that's a
not
really
humans.
Yeah.
But Vietri sul Mare is really pretty. There's I mean, it's really pretty, but it's pretty probably because it is touristy, and that like there's a row of these ceramic tiled little shops, which are colorful and beautiful, and it's for buying souvenirs and ceramics and stuff. But it is really, really pretty, and their ceramics date back to, at least there's evidence, back to the 11th century.
Interesting.
Yeah. And some people believe that Byzantine monks brought the production.
I can see that. Okay.
They had basically they were the ones controlling the religion at that point, and they might have been the ones to have brought the use of the creation of ceramics.
It's interesting to say that because the Duomo, I guess for lack of a better word, the dome in Positano, the famous like church dome that's colored tile, and there's a few other up and down the coast. It's interesting you say that the Byzantine monks, because I think somebody recently asked, we have one here that's done in the Amalfi style, and they asked if it was a Byzantine dome, and it's like, no, it's the Amalfi style. But I wouldn't be surprised because it doesn't look Italian at all.
Yeah.
I guess they almost look like, I mean, honestly, from far away too, it almost look like a mosque more than a church.
Yeah, definitely.
And I know Byzantine is Greek Orthodox, but I know that we talked about, like, I think a lot of times like the Saracens bringing in raiding, but also bringing words and bringing food. I think we even talked about that, like one of the episodes on dried pasta. It might have come from like the Saracens, and I was curious if there's a crossover between that and the domes, because they really are. They're very much not like anything else in Italy.
Right. No, they're very specific.
Yeah, there's no clay. It doesn't look like the terracotta. It doesn't look like stone. It doesn't look like slate. It's fascinating.
And I think you're right. I think the production of ceramics like that were happening in other parts of the world before they were happening in Italy, and certainly before they were happening in Vietri sul Mare. So there was I couldn't get straight between reading the Italian and the translated Italian, and then the not very much information that exists in English about the production of ceramics in Vietri sul Mare and also in Italy. But I think there was production of ceramics going on in different parts of Italy, particularly in what is that island at the toe of Italy?
Sicily?
Sicily, that's the one.
What's that giant bit of land sticking out
mass.
there?
So Sicily was producing a lot of ceramics.
Interesting.
But and Vietri sul Mare was positioned at a point that it was easy for products to be shipped out.
Sure.
So at a certain point, Vitri sul Mare, the production there overtook the production in Sicily. And in fact, in Palermo, I think, again, I was reading Italian and translations, but it seems like there is a specific neighborhood in Palermo, which is actually made of, the outside is tiled with Vitri sul Mare tiles rather than
Sicilian,
thank you, tiles.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm. And the production and then the shipping was going on all over through Italy.
Interesting. That's fascinating. I did not know that.
I know, crazy,
It's a
right?
fun little tidbit. Thank you.
So let's talk about another tidbit. Città. Well, no, let's skip to Amalfi because Città is going to transition into food. So in Amalfi, I just learned this today. Paper. They have what is it called? The Carta Bambagina.
Bambagina, yeah.
Yeah, like paper production that's famous.
And I don't think if I may, I don't think you've learned it today because at the art store you can buy this type of paper for watercolor painting. And it's like historically made in Amalfi. And I think we even maybe talked to somebody, not to say you forgot, but I believe...
I forget about most things, people. He's not just, making fun of me for no reason.
I wasn't trying to make fun of you for any reason. Well, no, I wasn't trying to make fun of you, period. Or for any specific reason, period.
I know.
But no, because I think at the that Poggi in Rome, they have it's a paper from Amalfi in sketchbooks, and it's like perfect for watercolor because it's a very rough. It's like very cold pressed texture. It's not. It's kind of. I don't know how many different types they do, but I know that the ones that you can get like at the paper store and the ones at the stationery store and the ones at like the art stores are quite like
it's quite handmade looking. Like when you think about the process of paper making, which is like you take the pulp and you mix it with the water. I don't make paper, but this is as much as I know.
Part of it, yeah.
You take the paper pulp, and you mix it with the water, and then you squish it between the little screens, and you dry it. It is quite. I mean, there's a specific look and feel that handmade paper has usually.
And theirs is mostly cotton and linen, interestingly, with some wood pulp, but rather than just wood pulp. But I thought that's fascinating as well.
Yeah.
So yes, they have, I believe, and I need to do the research on this, but they still believe they have one family that claims to have still be operating the same paper.
I think there's more than one, but I don't know. Okay, yes, you're right. I think there is one that is genuinely ancient, and then I think there are a couple other families, at least one, who are old in that they've been doing it for like 100 years. So that's nothing to wag your nose at, or whatever it is.
Wag your nose, chin wag. I don't know. That's a good question.
It's nothing to scoff at.
Yeah,
it's 100 years, but there is. I think you're right. The one that is quite old, still making paper.
When I say claim, though, I don't doubt it. It's just I think in Italy it's common for somebody to say, "Oh, I've been doing this for 600 years," and it's like, no, you did it for 100 years. You stopped, and then when you bought the business, you just took back the old name and all the old equipment and started up again. But there's a 200-year gap in between the. In the last time you did it in the first, that kind of thing.
Or families have been genuinely doing it for that long, but they have no proof of that.
Yeah, so it's just...
So they can't,
There's I love Italy, but sometimes there's that Roman king thing where it's just like, they just give...
Oh, yeah, they make up a story.
They make up a story. Like, yeah, we're from royalty. You don't believe it, but look we're from royalty.
Oh, yeah. Gosh. So, Amalfi paper. And you can buy, if you're looking for a lovely... thing to bring home. There are some really pretty Amalfi papers and like little note cards and things like that you can buy there. And
in Amalfi, I think there's a paper museum you can go to, and I think
it's really cool.
That family is Amatruda, I believe is the family.
That sounds right.
They have, I believe, a workshop you can go to and also purchase little like souvenirs, little goods, little notebooks. And obviously, I think it's sold at a lot of them. In Salerno, as we mentioned, there's a paper store that sells Amalfi paper as well as a couple other stores that sell Amalfi paper. So you'll not have trouble finding Amalfi paper if you want to see some Amalfi paper. So what is the last one?
Okay, so let's talk about Città, which is actually where you and I went to the beach once, and it was lovely. Cute little town. Yeah. Teeny tiny. Very cute. And they are known for their collatura, which is... Do you want to take a guess at what that's made out of, Nathaniel, just for fun?
Collatura, non so. I don't know. Something... I have no idea.
Okay, it's made out of a lychee.
Oh, would not have gotten that from collatura.
I know, right? So it is, and what is a lychee?
Anchovy?
Anchovy, thank you. I always forget the word. It's anchovy sauce, but that is misleading because whenever I first heard of this, I'm like, oh yeah, you put some anchovies and some olive oil, you put it on pasta. That seems normal. That is not what it is. So collatura is made by taking the head and the bones. You take the head off of the fish and the bones out, right? And they're tiny little fish, so you got to get a lot of them. And then you
Clearly,
put them
I mean,
in a chestnut barrel
Okay.
with salt.
Okay.
Okay, with me? So you have all the little fishies that are dead with the salt, and the salt leaches the liquid out of the fish.
Okay.
And do you think, Nathaniel, for fun, people eat the liquid, or do you think they eat the salted dried fish?
I feel like this is going to liquid territory.
It is. It's going where you might be scared. So the liquid then collects at this pool at the bottom of the barrel, and then it is bottled. And that is the colatura. And it is this fish sauce, which someone said it is, someone who's eaten it, said that it is similar to a fish sauce that is from Asia.
Okay, because I like Chinese, there's a lot of fish sauce in cuisine.
There's a specific one, but I don't eat fish sauce. But apparently it's something that people like, and it is likened to another cuisine in another part of the world. So, people have been eating it for a long time.
What do they do with the fish?
I don't know.
It's like, would it be preserved?
It'd be a byproduct of it. I have no idea. That's a great
preserved
question.
fish? That sounds.
I just know that people eat the sauce
just a
that
little
comes out of it.
shake of fish water on your.
And because it's so intensive of a process, like it has not caught on in this specific kind of fish sauce. Hasn't caught on in other parts of the world because it takes a lot of fish and it is a very intensive process.
Interesting.
But
I wonder,
it's very specific.
did you find out why they have to use? I know because chestnut grows naturally around here, but is there or natively? But is there a reason they use chestnut specifically? Is it like?
That's a wonderful question. I do not know.
Okay, because I know that like oak and wine is for tannin reasons, so I didn't know if there's something about chestnut.
I don't know. I know that they are in there for some time, so I don't know if the like you said, the wood has properties that. It could be the same with like cheese, the wooden cheese barrels. It's an anti-bacterial situation. I would imagine something like
disgusting.
that. I know.
Thank you. Well, I just don't. I will say I've had before we were vegetarian. I did have a dinner with my landlord, and she had like all these little sardines and anchovies. Which apparently you're supposed to eat them straight. I had no idea how to eat anchovies, people, before this. I was just like, I don't know. I'm like, I assumed you deboned them. She's like, no, you eat the bones. I'm like, I'm not eating a whole crunchy fish. But no, some of them were actually quite good. I was really surprised. The sardines not so much. I was like, this is no. But the anchovies, I was really surprised because I'm like, these are delicious little things. But then also the time we got a pizza, not realizing it had anchovies on it. This is back when we ate meat, but I don't think either of us could finish the pizza because it's just a very potent flavor of anchovies on a pizza.
And that's the thing with this colatura. The longer it's aged, the more intense and complex the flavors get.
Man, people were bored back in the day. I feel like people were bored now.
But apparently it's good.
Yeah, good for them.
It's artisanal.
Awesome. I'm very supportive of it.
And alici, anchovies, the best in the world, according to people who eat fish, come from the coast between Chitara and Positano, specifically.
Really?
Mm-hmm. And they live all along the western coast of Italy up to the north, but the best ones apparently come from this area.
There is, and I could be wrong, I think somewhere in Cinque Terre still does anchovy fishing, and somewhere near us in the Cilento does anchovy fishing. Like the twice a year they go out on boats at dawn, fish the anchovies and store them and have them for half the year kind of thing. And they're famous and that kind of stuff. Because you can get them here. Yeah, those are the anchovies at the they come in that giant can. Like imagine the tuna fish can, but it's like, I don't know, about as big as a pizza, but it's about a half a foot tall, maybe.
Cured in salt.
And they open it up and it's just basically rings and rings and rings and rings of.
And they basically use like a scraper to scrape them out of there for you.
They're really highly compressed in there. That is a fun thing to end on.
I know. You're welcome. We're not ending. There's more food quickly.
Oh my gosh.
Let's make it through the food. Just because we did say that it's so easy to find bad food in Amalfi. A lot of it is tourist food. A lot of it is food that has been tailor-made for people who have American tastes. Not to offend anybody. Okay.
No, but I think it's not so much American taste, but just simply tailored for Americans who are expecting
what they think Italian food will be.
Exactly.
Yes. Okay, so let's talk about Tramonti, which is the town that is farthest away from the coast in the Amalfi. It's up on a mountain, and they have this amaro, which is an after-dinner drink, called concerto, which is a lot like amaros made throughout Italy, but the flavors seem very similar to ones that are made throughout the Campania region, which is where we live, which is where Naples and the Amalfi Coast and all these places are. So it's a bitter digestive for having after dinner. It's made with, among other things, anise, cinnamon, coriander, juniper. It's should be like kind of like bitter and sweet and kind of spicy.
Interesting. That's very fascinating, actually.
So there's a town. So there's two towns called Maggiore and Minore.
Maiore and Minore?
Maiore e Minore. Thank you. Maiore e Minori.
Okay.
So Minori is the smaller one. And it has this cool pasta that is specific to this town called Ndunderi. That is spelled
okay.
N-D...
Of course it is.
U-N-D-E-R-I. Ndunderi. And it is a lot like gnocchi. And it is from the Middle Ages.
Interesting.
Cool, right?
That's also interesting because ND is a Calabrian.
Yeah.
Like Nduja or whatever
exactly.
it is, or Ngrate and Dragata. It's ND is a Calabrian dialect way of putting letters together. So I'm fascinated that it's...
That's a really good point.
Yeah, that it's from there. That's fascinating.
And I think this is our last one, also to do with pasta. In Positano, they have a specific type of vermicelli, which is like a thicker pasta than spaghetti. And it's from there specifically because it requires a lot of drying time because it's thicker. And apparently, Positano is incredibly windy, or the winds come through a lot, I should say. It's not so windy that like the drying pasta is going to fly off the drying rack, but it has frequent winds, so they could dry out this thick pasta.
That's interesting because I know that we talked about that with not just Torre Annunziata, but Gargnano, I believe. And that's their thing. They have a lot of wind and it dries the pasta. And for anybody wondering, when Darcy said vermicelli is thicker than spaghetti, interestingly, in Italy, it is thicker than spaghetti. In English-speaking countries like the UK, Australia...
it's like angel hair kind of
stuff.
stuff.
It is angel hair. And in fact, when you go to even Chinese grocery stores, even in Italy, or Asian grocery stores, but a lot of ones here are Chinese grocery stores, you can get like rice vermicelli, and it's basically rice angel hair. But I only want to point that out because I think if I had been listening to this prior to my
really good point
pasta knowledge, I would hear vermicelli and be like, wait, thicker than... That's like almost linguine. That's almost... What is that? But that is why. So sorry, was that the end?
That's the end. That's all the stuff that you can find
traditional
dishes in
if you're looking to bring
Amalfi
something
Coast.
back or try something, you're there.
And piatti tipici, typical plates.
Yeah. And I think part of this too, I want to if I may end it, or not, you can end it, but I mean, if I put an ending spin, is with the Amalfi Coast, there's so much to see. It's hard to do an episode of just what to see at the Amalfi Coast. It's the entirety, all of it, all the towns, all the places. You should go see all of it. You should go spend a week there. And then it's even we've talked about beaches before, I think, especially in regards to the Amalfi Coast. And we have said, and I think maybe we'll do a different episode than this later, but that the Amalfi Coast doesn't have a lot of beaches, which is, we should have prefaced this earlier, but that's coming from people who live near a lot of coastline currently, where it's a lot of beach. There are beaches in Amalfi Coast for sure. There are tons of little coves and this and that and the other thing. However, there isn't a lot of stretches of just beach front where you can just go and walk way down the beach and just have a day and feel private. It's there's a tons of little beaches, but a lot of them are private, not private, but a lot of them have the lidos on it, which make it private up into the water. And so
most of them do have a free beach, but the free beach could be super tiny,
or not necessarily a bit of a walk away, because sometimes they will have them separated like that. I wanted to point out, I realized some of our episodes, we didn't, we talked about food for this and, this for that and blah, blah, blah. And I think with the Rome episodes, we get really into them, and with Siena and the North as well, we got really into what you can find there and what you could do there. But I realized with the Amalfi Coast, it's you go to the Amalfi Coast. That is the thing.
It's a beautiful place to just wander around.
Yeah, it is.
And you're right. I think it can be deceptive, maybe from American movies and stuff, that we think that there's so much coastline in the Amalfi area. But every town is different. Obviously, like we said, not all the towns are even on the coast. 2 of them are not. And you're right. There's not a lot of continuous coastline, but there are many little beaches, and a lot like Sorrento. If you have a boat, you can reach others that are not reachable by foot. But it's not expansive, luxuriating in the lots of space.
Yeah, it's
along
not like the Caribbean or something. It's not like
Right.
white sand and just beaches for miles. But yeah, so I just wanted to end that, or just had to throw that at the end,
Yeah,
just so
thank
people
you.
were like, oh, so that was it. It's like, no, there's so much to do. It's just, we just wanted to, I think, give a preface of what to expect for food, what to expect for travel, and what to expect for kind of just being there, I think. Yeah.
Absolutely. And it is very walking heavy. I don't know if we put that in there. Much like Cinque Terre, there's a lot of stairs involved. The towns, like Chittara to me is in like the crevice. So it's a lot of walking up and down to get throughout this city. Salerno is by and large pretty flat.
Yes.
But a lot of the towns on the Amalfi Coast are going to be a lot of walking up and down.
Yeah, so be prepared. Definitely bring like walking shoes. If you can walk in flip-flops, that's fine. But again, it's smooth stones. It might, especially around the beach, it'll be wet because just, it'll be wet. It dries fast in the sun and all that kind of stuff. But just, and especially after rain, things just stay wet for a while sometimes. So just be extra safe walking around. That's all. Yeah, but I think that's good.
I think that's it. That's action packed. It was info packed.
It was action packed. Got a good action sequence in there. Cool. Was that everything?
That's it.
Well, yeah. Thank you, Darcy, for taking the lead.
You're very welcome. And thank you all for listening. Please follow and like. You can find us, if you have any questions, you can find us at onlyabag.com, only_a_bag on Instagram. You can find Nathaniel on Reddit at onlyabag. Where else?
I don't know. I think we actually technically are on YouTube. You can find this podcast on YouTube as well as
on YouTube to listen on there.
Apple Podcasts, and Spotify.
And basically anywhere that you listen to podcasts, you can find us. If you cannot find us, please let us know, and we'll make sure that we put ourselves on that platform. So yeah, let us know if you have any questions. And we will see you not next week, but the week after.
When Darcy's back from the States. Yay! I'm clapping, but I don't want anybody to hear me clapping because I might be really loud in the mic. So thank you all so much for listening. Have a lovely rest of your 2 weeks, and we hope to talk to you soon.
Enjoy Italy if you're on the way here.
Yes, please enjoy Italy. It's gorgeous weather. It's going to get hot soon, but it's gorgeous weather. And if you're going to the Amalfi Coast, please have fun. It is a beautiful time of year to be at the Amalfi Coast, and have some good food.
Yeah. All right. We'll talk to you next time.
Bye-bye.